Welcome, listeners, to www.IronRadio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowery.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome, IronRadio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowery. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I'm a nutritionist, and I'm a former competitive bodybuilder, too.
And this is Phil Stevens. I'm a coach. I run Strength Guild. I lift in powerlifting, Highland Games. I've done strongman. I've done about everything but bodybuilding that Lonnie Lowery's done. So,
nice. This is Dr. Mike T. Nelson. I'm the owner of Extreme Human Performance, teach for Globe University, did the certification over at Eat to Perform, and some other stuff too, but no bodybuilding.
Yeah, you've done some grip competitions. Man, we've got all the bases covered here, don't we?
Yeah, I did a bunch of grip competitions, did some powerlifting stuff in the past, did a strongman competition. So, yeah.
You know, I don't want to pigeonhole you, right, as the grip athlete amongst us. But Phil, have you ever done that? You ever do the grip stuff?
Nope. I've just hung on to heavy bars.
Yeah.
That's grip.
Yeah, that would be grip. Holding 800 pounds in your hand is a grip, Phil.
Yeah.
But I know that you're not judged on that. Like, you know, he didn't get that past his kneecaps, but God, look at that grip.
Yeah, exactly.
Grip there.
I was actually talking to a student the other day about different grip competitions and stuff. He was talking about there's these guys that do hang from bar and see how long they can hang and like one-handed and this and that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that kind of fits. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I just tried some one-handed hangs the other day, and I was like, oh, I'm utterly horrible at that.
Yeah. At first I told him, well, that'd be more muscular endurance, and I thought about it. No, because if your maximal strength is really high, that would be more submaximal, you know, to be able to do that. Your body weight wouldn't be a big deal to you, so.
Yeah. The other part people forget, too, and I forgot, too, is how much just stress you have on your shoulder, even if your grip can hold on to it, you know, especially if you're over 200 or a bigger guy, you know, that's another component too.
It is. You know, people would talk about how awesome they were at chins. And I was always bottom heavy, you know, even when I was competing and I was at my biggest, or even now. Some people are just built to be bottom heavy as opposed to the guys that have no legs and don't spend any time in the squat rack. And they're boasting about chins. I'm like, yeah, because you have like 8 pounds below your waist, you know. Just saying.
Easy for those light bulbs.
Yeah, that's right, light bulbs. Okay, I got one bit of news, I got a bunch of mail, and then we're going to do a little bit of achievements in training. We haven't done this for months, and it's not always a PR, you know, as far as weight on the bar. It could be something we learned or, you know, a new movement, anything like that. But I digress. Let's start with the news.
Strength and muscle sport news.
My wife sent me this because she is decidedly not vegan. So if you're a vegan, don't listen to this part. You might not like it because I'll tell you, I've had conversations with people who were vegans before, even arguments. And I'm all about it. And I think, Phil, we all probably agree. If you're into being a vegan for ethical reasons, I can see that argument, right? Some of what the animal industry does is a little hard to witness. Having said that, I mean, you can make arguments for, you know, the food chain and that kind of thing. But anyway, this is called Being Vegan Isn't as Good for Humanity as We Think. This is from Quartz Daily Brief, I think, by Chase Purdy, as I understand. This is just very recently published. It's sort of a science-based blog. Basically, what they're suggesting here, let me just set this up. It says, you know, vegans often take the high moral ground when it comes to, you know, food sustainability and that sort of thing. It says, using biophysical simulation models to compare 10 eating patterns, researchers found that eating fewer animal products will increase the number of people that can be supported by existing farmland. But, as it turns out, eliminating animal products altogether is not the best way to maximize sustainable land use. This work was published in Elementa, It's a journal on the science of the Anthropocene. So they looked at the vegan diet. They looked at 2 different vegetarian diets. I think like a lacto-ovo, right, with the milk and eggs, and then just the milk. It says based on their models, the vegan diet would feed fewer people than 2 of the vegetarian and 2 of the omnivorous diets that were studied. The bottom line, going cold turkey on animal-based products may not actually be the most sustainable long-term choice for humanity. It says the average U.S. consumer today requires more than 2.5 acres, that's over 2 football fields of land each year to sustain their current diet. And how you can dramatically reduce that footprint, right, if you reduce the meats. I mean, it makes sense. You can grow a lot of plants on some of that land, and instead of like one cow, grazing all over it sort of thing. However, it says when applied to the entire global population, the vegan diet wastes available land that could otherwise feed more people. That's because we use different kinds of land. And this is something that hasn't been looked at in the past. And I just think this is fun. I like to, shots fired at the vegans, I guess. I'm not only because so much
vegans.
Well, yeah, so much of what they do, I think, is, when you start to have a conversation with them, there's like a belief system around it. And, on one side you can make belief-based decisions, but I rather make logical conclusions, So it's just fun to kind of poke around. In fact, I said this on the podcast many months ago, but once I made a comment about how, we have enzymes in our digestive tract like collagenase. That's there for one reason, and that's meat, Or I remember the picture I took of you, Dr. Nelson, in the Smithsonian. There's a whole wing there about how meat eating actually led to larger brains and the ability to, have enough time, because meats are so nutrient rich that you can actually take that time that you would have spent grazing and foraging and teach your young and develop art and science and, so, but I digress. There's 3 kinds of land, apparently, that these guys are looking at. Grazing land, right, which is often unsuitable for growing crops. There's perennial land that supports crops that are alive year-round. And then there's cultivated crop land, which is what we usually think, which is, where you grow fruits and vegetables and all that kind of stuff. It says the diets that contain the most meat used all available crop and animal grazing lands. The diets, and they look at quite a few here, that used the least amount of meat or no meat at all varied a lot in land use. It says, but the vegan diet stood out because it was the only diet that used no perennial crop land at all. And if you remember, that's one of our 3 types. And as a result, would waste the chance to produce a lot of food. So,
yeah, it pretty much ignores the grazing land. And
yeah. Yep.
So.
Yep. And then there's also a section here throwing a bone to vegans and that sort of thing. I mean, there are a lot of podcasts that are more popular than ours are about, the vegan athlete and this and that. But we've had episodes on that before. If you talk to a lot of strength athletes, most of the ones that I've encountered, and I don't know what you guys would say, but they would actually admit, I guess is the best word, that had they been more omnivorous and eaten more meat, they probably would have benefited from it in some way. As opposed to
and the part that bugs me, I've still yet to see a strength or power athlete that started and ended vegan. There's always they bring up these people that they were freaking omnivorous all the way to a point, and then 4 months ago they turned vegan, and they're like, look at him, he's badass. It's like, yeah, he just turned that way.
right. And we all know you know what, whether it's training or I would argue maybe even nutrition, once you build up a large base of muscle mass, it's easier to hold on to it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, than to build it in the first place. Anyway, what else do we have going on here? Anyway, so, not just a slam against vegans, but I think so often it's touted as the, most ethical, most environmentally friendly, and even best for your health. And I don't agree with that. I think a lean meat diet with lots of vegetables, that's great. I'm not anti-vegetable at all. I mean, but I think we overlook that there are zoochemicals, creatine and carnosine, and we've talked about this stuff before. So anyway, this even takes, a notch away from that pure vegan idea from a different perspective.
Yeah, but a lot of that, too, makes a difference on how the meat is raised and that type of thing too. Because Minnesota, I have the luxury of buying grass-fed beef from a farmer we know in Wisconsin who rotates the cows on the land and that kind of stuff too. So I think that it makes a difference on how everything is raised too.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, there's sustainable coffee. There's sustainable all kinds of things. Yeah. Okay, what else is going on? Let me run down some Iron Radio news before I get to some listener mail. I mentioned that Men's Fitness article on protein mixing. There was a couple of different people that they interviewed. That's up, so I'll put a link maybe on the Facebook page. Those of you who are familiar with mixing different proteins, like, one of the questions would come up, can I mix casein and whey? Will it slow down the whey? If I have a plant protein, which plant proteins are best to mix? That kind of stuff. So, what else? Brace yourselves, but the fall funds drive, it's almost time. So it's September. We'll start putting little mentions here and there, or even a little ad mid-show. I know a lot of podcasts. In fact, some podcasts that I listen to that are listener-supported, like Iron Radio, they're irritatingly so. They constantly bring it up, and I don't know if listeners think about this, but we don't. We don't start every episode with Phil begging for cash, or me begging for donations, or so we try to limit this to a fall funds drive. Sometimes we'll have other special contests or something like that, but so don't be offended. I mean, something's got to keep the lights on, pay the servers and whatnot. So we try not to put that in your face all the time, but look for the fall funds drive. And by the way, thank you for people who have supported us in the past. We do have sustaining members too, the $4 per month people. That's greatly appreciated, because some come and go, and I'll usually even send people if they have to stop for whatever reason. I'll say thanks for supporting us while you could, and you'd be surprised at the number of really nice emails I get. Like, I'm just a poor grad student. I just wanted to help while I could, and great, that's awesome. That's awesome. Also, anybody who supported some of the research, I've asked for in the past donations for some student research and whatnot. I have prepped some audio files, and if you email me, and some of you have, about, hey, I supported the research, can you give me some details what came of that? I can send you links through experimental biology. They keep up the posters, that stuff gets published. I can show you the posters, and I'm also I can send you links. I actually recorded audio on the way to work. It was like, 5 o'clock in the morning. It was just brutal early morning stuff, but because we have to test a lot of these people before breakfast, because, of course, people eat different breakfasts, and then all hell breaks loose, and so I'll offer those to anybody who wants them. You can just send us an email through ironradio.org. I think there's like 5 or 6 installments, but it gives you an idea about what happens, with people who are collecting data and trying to get some stuff published, and. Yeah,
and I think it's very cool for people to know that money goes directly to helping students do research, and like you said, presenting it at the conferences, which I've been there too, and I think that's a really cool opportunity for students to have that they may not have, because funding from the school a lot of times is less than expected too. So
right, yep. And in fact, in our achievements in training, and it's not so much as training, but I could even share some of what we're looking at just recently. There's some really cool stuff that you kind of stumble upon with this stuff. So it does matter, you guys are real professionals. I'm a real professional. So many people in the fitness industry, they're sort of fake scientists, or they're personality coaches. You know what I mean by that, Phil. They're all over online. They look like they're some superstar. It's like, well, if you're such a superstar, how do you write an article a day and spend all your day on social media? Where are the actual clients, kind of thing, and your gym. I don't know. So there's that. YouTube, I wanted to make a quick comment. I continue to put up our audio only on YouTube. It's just for anybody who wants to listen to it. It's very secondary. I'm not going to put a ton of time into that, because, of course, the way we've been sustainable with this podcast, talk about sustainability, is that we could just sit down on Saturdays and just, shoot the shit, talk shop. And so I'm not going to put a ton of time into that. I know there's there's not a lot of people that are listening through that route, but just something to support the community. You know, if you want to listen in your living room, like I said, through your Roku or your Xbox or something, sometimes YouTube's an easier way to do that. Just expect audio only. And there's not going to be video. Okay. Listener mail here. Got a nice email just yesterday from David. He says, I hope all is well. You may have seen what I'm about to tell you, but I'm passing it on just in case. About 3 months ago on YouTube, a video podcast was posted with an interview with Tom Platz. I thought you may enjoy it. If you do a Google search for Golden Aesthetic Podcast, it will come up. It's titled Mind-Blowing Podcast with legendary Tom Platz, the Golden Eagle. So David says it's very motivational, inspiring. He says, while watching it this morning, I had my pre-training meal of a whey protein drink, 2 Pop-Tarts, and a big dose of coffee in my IronRadio mug with ibuprofen.
Wow.
He's
getting prepared for war.
That's right. He's got the whole suite going. Then I did lots of squats. I was in the zone and didn't want my training session to end. I'm sure you can relate. So he says, and then he just says, keep up the good work. I've been supporting member for 2 years. I look forward to your weekly podcast and often listen to shows many times over. There are many gems contained in each show. Enjoy your weekend. So thank you, David. That was nice. And, you know, that's exactly the kind of stuff I replied to him. And I love to look at that kind of stuff, you know, some of the older school stuff. In fact, I did reach out to Robbie Robinson recently, based on listener feedback. It's actually harder to reach some of those old school bodybuilders than you might think. They have web pages, you know, like RobbieRobinson.net, BoyerCo.net, and you actually try to reach out to them, and the web pages don't exist anymore. They're not exactly kept up and maintained. You know, it's hard to reach them. So we'll see. What else? This is from, Robert Dione at Open Sky Podcast. I'm not sure if you noticed last week, but we did launch your interview. Yeah, I did an interview with these guys. Sorry, I somehow forgot to send this. It says, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to let you know that our interview is now up and running. Again, this is on the Open Sky Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to do the interview. I won't go through all this, but it's essentially about bodybuilding and, you know, starting healthy habits. It's more of a Gen Pop kind of podcast, and I hope Robert doesn't smack me for saying that. But, you know, honestly, you could take a barbell approach, and it's going to help all kinds of people. I know that's kind of how Phil, that's like your MO in a lot of ways, you know, is, hey, barbells work, kind of thing. So that's up. I mentioned the Robbie Robinson thing. Oh, and a Reddit question here. So let me toss this at you fellows before we go to break. I don't think we covered this last time, Dr. Nelson, when we did some Reddit questions. This guy says, what is the best way to cope with carb craving? Did we do this one?
Not that I remember.
Okay. I'm cutting for the first time in like 3 years, and god damn, I want carbs. That's what he says. I eat vegetables. I eat vegetables, but no matter how full I get of, you know, meat and vegetables, the carb craving is still there. I'm on 150 grams of carbs for my cut, so I can eat some. Help. All right. How about you, Dr. Nelson? This sounds like the kind of thing you might bump into.
Oh, man. That could be a whole bunch of different ways, but I guess a couple things for him to look at. We don't have too much background info, but seeing where his protein is at, you know, probably a little bit higher, you know, may help a little bit from there. Also seeing where his fats are at. Sometime I've noticed, like recently, people have like a super high fat intake, or higher, I guess you could say. Sometimes even in the 90 to 100 grams, which is not astronomical. It's not ketogenic or anything, but a few people I've just switched, you know, the amount of calories from fat to carbohydrates. So basically keeping the calories the same. And they tend to do a little bit better just from cravings and performance-wise, that type of thing. Another thing he can try too, which he might be doing, but we don't have any info, is higher amount of carbohydrates on the weight training days, and then a little bit lower on the off day. Usually on an off day, I won't have people go much below 120 grams of carbs. You get in that sort of 50 to 100 gram area, and most people just feel pretty horrible. I mean, obviously at some point you may end up in that area just because there's nowhere else to go. But starting off, try to stay out of that sort of gray zone. That's what I would look at. And then the other thing, too, is what type of training he's doing. I have noticed that if people do a fair amount of high kind of glycolytic training or CrossFit or a lot of strongman medleys or just a lot of volume, that their craving for carbohydrates tends to go up quite a bit because they're burning through a whole bunch of them. So he may want to look at that in terms of what style of training he's doing. And there's some good data now, even for pure hypertrophy. I know Dr. Brad Schoenfeld's done some studies showing that even longer rest periods between sets may actually be better. So he may want to pull his training out just a little bit and have a little bit more rest and still keep the quality of work pretty high and see how that goes too.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. I can only offer, like, when I have competed in the past, I would sort of pester other guys and say, you know, how do you prep? You know, it's always interesting to me. It's very carb focused, but it's sort of like a chance that you're not going to get anywhere else, you know. So I almost like an anthropologist, you know, amongst this foreign culture kind of thing. Not totally
qualitative
foreign.
Assessment backstage.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, some guys will they'll allow like a Saturday refeed, and they'll go bonkers. And unapologetically so. Like if they cut their carbs really heavily, like down to 50 grams a day kind of thing during the week, they'll eat a whole chocolate cake on Saturday, you know, or a large pizza. They'll go nutso, reestablish their glycogen stores so they can get a good run at the next week. And if you think about it, you're like, well, doesn't that ruin everything? Well, when you're depleted, yeah, you're going to store more of that, probably the fat too. Then normally, you know, enzymes are excited and the hormones are, everything's poised to store. But when you think about everything you've denied yourself for the last 5 days, quantitatively, it's just, you're never going to put that much back. You know, you're still ahead. Yeah. So, you know, I suppose that's an approach too. I know what he's saying. Sometimes, even when you're eating lots of meats and veggies, you do get those cravings. You know, I've looked at stuff, I always joke, like I look at saltine crackers like they're, you know, Krispy Kreme donuts or something.
But that's, I mean, I'm a week in to my diet, and it's a freaking craving. That's it. That's where it's like, so just shut up and don't eat it. You know, you're doing this diet. It's not supposed to be fun. You know, is when you get to a point. If he's just dieting to be like healthy, well, yeah, you need to find a middle ground. Yeah. But if you're doing something extreme like Lonnie did to get on stage, or, you know, what I'm doing for the first time in 15 years, at some point it's going to suck. And I'm going to look at a donut, I'm going to want it, and I'm just going to have to say no.
Yep.
Yep. Sorry to be the downer, but I mean, it really is that. It's a craving. It's just a desire for something. Are you stronger than I'm stronger than the donut.
Right. You know? Yeah.
I always look at when those start too, right? So if he's doing that to try to get to more an extreme level, and let's say he's 16 weeks out and this is going on now. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. You know, if you're 4 weeks out or whatever, 8 weeks or something, you know, and you've been doing it for 6 months, okay, yeah, you know. But if this is like day one, danger.
Yeah. Right. You know, what you just said, Phil, reminds me of what Dorian Yates used to say. Rob and I were in his hotel room once, and he said something along the lines of, you know, people get cranky and they break up with their spouse or their girlfriend because of a diet and this and that. He goes, what the hell is going on? He said, I'll just eat the cake then. I mean, I'm doing it to myself, you know, like Phil said, like suck it up. Of course, it's irritating. Yeah. Actually, there's been some good research with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and teaching people to sort of, you know, first you get in a good state. You don't wait until you're starving to do this. But when you're feeling kind of full and replete, you set the stage, right? It's like contingency management. Like when I get to that hunger point, I'm going to examine, you know, what it is. Instead of just flying into this panic mode, like, oh my God, I'm starving, this is so bad. It's like, well, what am I feeling? Well, my stomach's growling a little. What else? I feel a little fatigued. And you just kind of like a scientist almost study your sensations. But the point is they try to do that in such a way that it's not as big of a deal. Like you said, Phil, it's like, well, yeah, it's a craving. Okay. You know, whatever, you know.
Move on. Yeah.
Move on, right? Yeah. And then focus on something else maybe.
Yeah.
Now, that's easier said for some people than others. I get it. Hormones drive us in different ways, but I got to think that psychologically, some of that training could help. So it's not a panic. It's not a panic scenario.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it's like I'm a weekend and I'm already getting people like posting memes on my page, like my diet was going well until Taco Tuesday hit. And it's like, no, I'm okay. This isn't for the next 50 years. I've got a set period of time, and then I can go back to having whatever the hell I want.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm okay with it. So
well, it looks like this Reddit question. He's eating 150 grams of carbs a day. So I don't know. There are some people who would suggest, I think some of the ketogenic guys say once your ketones come up and that sort of thing, you actually have less cravings after a couple of weeks. I don't know if that's just habitual or if there's something biological happening or what. Have you heard anything about that, Mike, about the ketone production? If you're really low, the carbs go away?
Yeah, there's some early data to show that higher production of ketones does seem to blunt appetite a little bit. And I've played around with, you can get exogenous ketone salts in various forms now too. I actually used some yesterday before some aerobic type training. It does seem to blunt appetite a little bit. So if I have someone, I try to keep them out of that gray zone. I'm not a huge ketogenic diet fan for strength and power, maybe even physique. But if someone gets super low, I'd rather have them go into a ketogenic state or try to get there. I'm not a big fan of like the cyclic ketogenic diets. I know they've been around since Zappano had a 10-day template like decades ago.
Right, yeah.
And on theory, they look really cool on paper, but oh man, I've just never seen them work that successfully in people. I'm sure someone's made it work. And there was one study that still hasn't been published yet that showed the cyclic ketogenic diet, kind of, the 4 or 5 days in a ketogenic state, and the weekend you kind of go bonkers, that it took them, almost till Wednesday to get back to a ketogenic state again. So you're kind of prolonging this no man's land you're hanging out in. So
okay, that's true. I see that. You know what? We have enough time. Let me squeeze in one more. This is perfect for Phil. Good for both of you guys, but also Reddit question. If it's better to start lifting for strength for beginners, when do you start lifting for size? He says, at what point would you change a rep scheme? What's your opinion on that?
Man. Oh, that's
what's
tough.
their goal?
I mean, it depends on what their goal is, but I mean, I think he wants size. You need to have some kind of base form of strength in. I mean, like we've talked about before, it's gonna, like if you're doing sets of 10 with 85 pounds, you're just not strong enough. You need to get a base build. I don't know. I guess any grown man should be, you should be benching, a couple 100 pounds, squatting 300 at least, and maybe deadlifting 350. Get that in first. Get some kind of base. I mean, I still catch crap from that episode we did where I said any grown-ass man should deadlift 405.
Right, yeah.
But I got a video I'm going to put up tomorrow. I got a freaking 17-year-old kid that weighs 150 just pulled 405 in my gym. So shut up.
Wow.
If I can make a 150-pound kid deadlift 405, then you have no excuse as a grown man. Yeah. And it's if you do that first, then, if you're doing reps with 315 on stuff, the potential for growth is much bigger. Volume is volume, yes, but volume with load is even better as far as, some kind of growth going on. So,
right. I think if you look at it like a total dose of iron, if there's almost no iron on the bar, you can do reps all day. You're just not accruing that kind of load.
Yeah, I mean, if that was real, if it was just volume, then marathon runners would have jacked legs, dude. They'd be just huge. So it does take load. Yeah. So I would get some kind of base set. Even start it for yourself. Set, like I said, 315, 200. And then go to volume for a while and see what happens. And then, but
so would you suggest then? If we just really get to this time, like when do you do this? Would you go pure strength kinds of training for at least 6 months or a year, or would you take a period, like do periodization and take a little bit of time that year and maybe do sets of 8 to 12 for a while.
Well, that's the thing is, like, even my strength athletes, when they come to me, when people come to me at first, they're amazed at the amount of volume I have people do, even for strength. Volume make you stronger. We're gonna go through stages where we're hitting, 30 reps in something in a big move. And then we'll slowly back down. And I do much more of a periodized type thing. Okay, we're doing 30 reps. Now we're down to 15 reps. Now we're down to like 5 singles. And then we're going to bounce back again. So I definitely move through stages of high volume. You can't put a base in place doing singles. You just can't. So, I believe beginners, they should be doing lots of reps. But, we're not going for size at that point. We're going for some kind of base of strength and musculature. Now, if we're talking pure just size, like stepping on stage being pro bodybuilder size, you need to lay down some strength first. But,
okay.
No,
that's true. And you're right.
It's kind of a double-edged sword.
It is. Because honestly, I think a beginner can build some pretty damn good legs in the 225 to 315 range.
Yeah.
With the volume.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's even an intermediate. That's, I've only done, I didn't do this often, but I've only done, you could probably count on 2 hands the number of times I've done 315 for a set of like 20. That is ridiculously hard.
Disgusting.
It's ridiculously hard. I'm not a big person either. And some people are like, Lowery. But sorry, that was good for me, but at the same time, Rob and I used to talk about that too. I really do believe that. The 225, basically 2 to 3 plates on a side, that's enough load. You're stimulating some growth.
Yes. Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to save. There's one more on here that would be great. Actually for all you guys, but I'm gonna table this one until next week. It's about functional strength training, and I'll save that one.
Opposed to non-functional strength training.
Well, that's the quote. I don't know. Don't pick on me now. All right. We'll go to break, and then we're going to come back. We're just going to kind of throw around some achievements in training. Hey, listeners. This is Dr. Lonnie Lowery. If you've ever had anyone critique you on your protein intake as part of your weightlifting lifestyle. Oh, you poor meathead. All that extra protein is going to rot your kidneys or weaken your bones or dehydrate you or give you gout or who knows what. There is a book available. You could simply Google CRC Press and Lowery. And what I've done is reach out to experts all over the world and create a book, a single compendium that you can hold up and say, this is why I consume extra protein. This can be very valuable when you're being quote-unquote educated by various professionals on the topic. There's an enormous amount of literature in this book on the safety, the effectiveness, how protein works in cells, the history of protein and weight trainers, much more. So again, please check out CRC Press and Protein and Lowery. You can just Google that. And full disclosure, I do make a small single-digit royalty on the book. But that's not why I did it. I did it so we can all have something, our particular population, to both defend what we do and to inform our nutrition and our eating. Thanks. Hi, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowery, and on behalf of Phil and Rob, I'd just like to let listeners know that if you love us or you hate us, we'd like you to leave a comment or perhaps vote for us on iTunes. It helps us out quite a bit on the popularity side of things. You can also follow Dr. Lowery, me, on Twitter. It's Lawnman7 on Twitter if you want to do that. We also have a Facebook page, the Iron Radio listeners page. So whether it's leaving a comment or voting for us or following us on Twitter or Facebook, that would be fantastic. Also, occasionally Rob or myself will write an article for another website, and Phil will as well. So lots of ways to interact. Follow us in other media and vote for us and keep things going strong on Iron Radio. Thanks.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
All right, everybody, we are back, and we are going to talk about, I guess, our achievements over the last few weeks or few months or anything, kind of recent. So.
Right, yeah. It doesn't have to be maximum loads or anything. You know what? I'm going to start with an anti-achievement. This is I made some pumpkin spice coffee this morning because I like this time of year as we're starting to head into the fall, and I made the weakest coffee. Damn. I just... This is like everybody before we hit the record button to come back into the show. Everybody's talking about Phil's coffee line, how strong it is, and I'm drinking this coffee and nothing is happening. Anyway. So what's been happening? What about you, Phil? It could be with the boxing or something you learned. Anything?
Yeah, man, I'm a week into dieting, so I know I can go a week without a donut. Still, so yeah, I've switched up. Normally I would stop and grab a donut on the way to train at 4:45 in the morning, and now I'm like waking up and slamming some whey protein and some coconut milk, and it's not that bad. I'm good, man. I feel good.
I think you gotta reprove it to yourself after not doing it for a while.
Exactly, and that's the thing. And I mean, I'm giving myself a nice long time. We're doing this for 24 weeks, so I don't have to do anything drastic. So it's we can slowly go at it. I'm just going really low carb for 2 weeks to get things rolling. I'm not watching calories at all. It's just mainly protein and fat, and then we'll adjust from there and get some fruits in and things like that. So,
what's the goal?
The
target.
The goal would be around 6 or 7%.
Wow.
So
that's super low.
That is the goal. So for my 40th birthday.
Ah, nice.
Yep, I've had that goal for about 7 years. The only issue I have is that 7 years ago I did not foresee having 2 major lower body surgeries that I need to come back from.
Yeah, that would do it.
So I have a lot of leg mass to make up from those. But it's coming along good. I'm doing tons of volume for lower body. Like yesterday I had to do 30 reps with 315 of 1.5 deadlifts. So that's where you go from floor to the knee and then floor all the way up. That's 1 rep with 315. So it was just the so basically you're doing 20 reps a set, and it wasn't the weight that was an issue. It was the I'm so used to be power training, so I'll like get psyched up and then take a big breath and then start rolling. And like 5 reps in, I'm like, crap, I need to breathe or I'm going to pass out.
Right.
So it's learning to breathe again while I lift. And so I get done and my heart rate's like 200. It's good. It's good. I feel good. So
of course that might be the coffee, your high caffeine coffee helping with that.
Yeah. So
what about you, Dr. Nelson?
Training wise, it's been working a little bit more on 3D vision, which has been getting quite a bit better. Had a guy do some wacky kind of hands-on stuff that helped quite a bit with that, and I've been able to replicate that, which was cool. And when we were out in California, we got together with Dr. Josh Cotter, who's been on the show here before, played some volleyball out on the beach there. And of course,
sweet.
the people we're playing with were like really good, which makes your playing so much better. And they were nice to us. But that went all right and didn't end horribly, so I was pretty happy with that. Doing some grip stuff, got the 100-pound inch replica, so I've been able to get like 4 reps aside relatively easily now, so that's coming along better. And for just stuff in the gym, I had to pick some just general lifts to kind of focus on that I know have a pretty high transfer. So I picked dumbbell incline press, which tends to, at least for me, transfer pretty well to overhead pressing, especially axle clean and press. And then dumbbell rows, but doing the dumbbell rows without any straps and no chalk and nothing else. So the weight's not so much the issue there. It's just, a little bit more of the grip component. So on the rows, I was able to get up to 95 for, sets of 12. Again, not a lot, but it's basically more of the grip component. And once I get to 100 on that, then I'll cycle in the the fat grips, so the 2-inch and the 3-inch versions I just can walk over and bring to the gym. Incline presses, did 85s for, reps of 7. That was, pretty good speed, felt pretty good. So,
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So it's getting better. It's much better than I've ever done before. And it's funny. I went and did the flat dumbbell bench the other day, and I'm like, I can do way more on the incline than I can on flat now. So that was pretty bizarre.
Yeah, that's different. Your hand size, dude, I can't remember. Do you have big hands? Because if you don't know, Mike's a big guy. Tall, broad. But are your hands big? Does it help with any of this stuff or no?
They're not. They're, for my size, I'm like 6'3". They're pretty damn average.
Okay.
My dad's side, like, I got my basically my mom's bone structure. So everyone on their family is really tall, really lanky, really fine bone structure. Like, my wrists are really small. My dad's side was much bigger structure. So, like, his fingers are kind of the sausage fingers, type thing. But yeah, definitely didn't get that.
Right. No, I don't either. Sometimes I shake the hands of a big bodybuilder, and I'm almost embarrassed I have these little hands,
Yeah.
I mean, not tiny, but not like that meaty, like you said, it's like sausage fingers. Some of these guys, crazy,
I remember shaking Brad Gillingham's hand, and I'm like,
exactly.
It's like a giant catcher's mitt.
It's
huge.
Right, exactly like a catcher's mitt. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that with, guys that, Kazmaier, like at the Arnold Classic, and you're just a child. I don't know what else to say. Partly because you're geeking out a little because of who it is, but partly because literally physically in size you're a child. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. J.L. Holdsworth was like that too. The first time I met him at the Elite FTS Learn to Train, he was in the deadlift group, so he was instructing there with Dr. John Mike. And I'm walking over there, and I'm like, "Hey, isn't that an inch dumbbell just laying there?" He's like, "Oh yeah." So he walks over, like, just picks it up, and it was. So of course, monkey see, monkey do. Everyone else sees him do it, and it was funny to watch all these other guys come up and like no one could even pick it up. But JL pulls close to 800 pounds and has competed and won several grip events and stuff too.
Oh, so yeah, he was one massive dude. He was at a strength conditioning conference that I did at University of Akron years ago. Yeah, nice guy too, on the ball.
Oh, super
really
nice
on the
guy.
ball.
Super nice, yeah.
Yeah, we could do one quick other round here maybe, but for me with the lifting stuff, I'm open to suggestions. I'm going to put it out there, but I think if I have an achievement, I've been able to maintain, it's just a 3 to 4 day per week frequency, even with the start of the semester, and sometimes that's easier said than done. I know some listeners know what I'm talking about. There are times where it's like what you said before, Mike, with your dissertation. You can't just expect to train 6 days a week. It's just not going to happen. But I'm just going to put out a request. Send us an email through IronRadio.org or whatever. But I don't know. I need a goal, right? Because I'm this quasi-arthritic, beat up joint, post bodybuilding competitor. I don't know what to do with myself really. I remember back in the day. You guys remember in the back of the muscle magazines, Clarence Bass had those ripped, that ripped book, and this guy just continued to get shredded. Like into his, I think, 60s.
I think even beyond that. But
maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Especially I can't let Phil the powerlifter get shredded, and I'm this off-season mess.
I'm gonna be all back, man. It's gonna be like he's got no arms. It's like I haven't done a bicep curl in years, and I got to do some of that. And I'm doing leg extensions and
leg extensions.
That's
awesome.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I'm pleased about, I guess, over the last couple of months is I've always fussed about doing cross-pollinating with, getting back to doing some writing and some other podcasts and stuff. And I took the opportunity in the summer to actually do that. It's a way for me to get Iron Radio out there, and we do get new listeners that way. So building the community is something that's actually hard to do because, like I've said before, we all have real jobs, and it's hard to spend all your time marketing. I get jealous of some of the people that do podcasts, and it's kind of a main thing for them. Maybe their spouse supports them or whatever, and I'm not in that category. None of us are, so it's hard to take the time to do that. And then, you know what, there's the ASEP conference coming up in October. I've been organizing that, so that's going to have more of a mental health kind of slant. You know, we're going to. I had Sean Casey. He's going to come down, and we'll get Corey Van Wyk down.
Awesome.
You know, from the Minnesota, Wisconsin area, Iowa, etc. You know, I'll try to get Mike Nelson down here, too. I'm just trying to build the schedule and all that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of people would be surprised at, you know, we said, like, barbell training works. Well, nutrition does, too. And it's amazing how many health professionals, they try to get outcomes out of people with pathetic lifestyles. It's like trying to plant flowers in a spoiled garden. You know, they're physically weak. They don't have micronutrition or any kind of nutrition for that matter, and you're trying to help them with their depression or their anxiety or their whatever it might be, you know, like back pain and they just have very fundamental lifestyle issues, and yet they don't always get addressed as much, you know. So we're going to focus mostly on some of the mental health here this October. If anybody's curious about it, you can send me an email through ironradio.org. But that's one of the things that I feel like I'm making some progress on. We're giving out continuing education credits for certain mental health professionals and that kind of stuff. So,
you mentioned micronutrition and depression. When I was at the International Society of Clinical Neuroscience conference last year, there's a guy from Harvard, Dr. Charlie Popper, was presenting on that, and he uses like just, you know, a standard pretty high dose multivitamin, super high dose actually in his practice. And he found just by doing that and getting more, you know, vitamins, micronutrition and stuff in a lot of people, that his use of antidepressants actually dropped off like dramatically.
Oh, hey.
He was a psychiatrist, I believe.
Can you get some of that evidence? I'd love to throw that into one of the talks that we're doing. Yeah, vitamin D. I mean, there's been some good links to a lot of things. Creatine, you know.
Yep.
So, anything else?
No, I mean, the only other thing I got is I'm glad I can squat 500 and deadlift 500 after 2 massive surgeries. So
really,
that's where I want to be. Yeah,
Phil,
nice.
You freak me out with that sometimes. You're back at it, you know, and I know to you that's like a 60% load or something, but that
was my goal, and I'm not going to go higher than that until after this diet's done. So I'm giving myself another 24 weeks before I even attempt to go higher than that. I've got to let myself heal.
Yeah, you do.
So
yeah.
How's the discrepancy left to right now? Pretty good.
Well, yeah. I mean, they both suck. So
I'm even. I would say 500 is sucking, but.
But
all right, fellas. Well, I've got some construction guys in my front yard.
Oh.
So
have a good one.
All right, see ya.
Talk to you later.
Hey listeners, have you seen the store at ironradio.org? There are 3 halls in the store. One for Phil, one for Fortress, and one for myself, Dr. Lowery, and they're thematic. So you can go into our Halls of Iron store and choose based on your goal. If you need something to learn or read or something nutritional, you can look in my store, Lonnie's store. If you want something about injury prevention or competition, then take a look at Phil's Hall of Iron. And if you want something about motivation or daily training, Fortress's Hall has what you're looking for. There are some fun, heroic descriptors as you browse through the stores. We try to make it a little more fun than the average boring online store. And whether you're a novice lifter or someone more experienced, you can take heart that you're not wasting your time. The things that we put in each Hall of Iron are actually based on our own recommendations. Protein powders that we know to be good, knee sleeves, wraps of some kind, things that Fortress uses in his own training. The stuff you see, you know is good. This way you don't waste time. So check out the Iron Radio store at ironradio.org and let us know what you think on the forums, and certainly you can request products and we will screen them before they go in. So thanks for listening. Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the IronRadio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.